The crystal spires of Zentara Prime gleamed under twin suns as Ambassador Marcus Kane walked through the massive halls of the Galactic Council building. His boots echoed on the polished floor, each step feeling heavier than the last. Behind him, Lieutenant Sophie Martinez clutched a data pad, her knuckles white with tension. They had been summoned to this meeting with only 2 hours' notice. The message was brief and cold. High Chancellor Vexitar wanted to see them immediately. No explanation given. No hint of what was coming. Marcus had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 3 years. He thought he understood how things worked out here among the stars. The Council made decisions. Smaller worlds like Earth followed those decisions. It was simple. It was peaceful. It had worked for over 1,000 years, but today felt different. The massive doors to the council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in curved rows that rose up like an ancient amphitheater. At the center, High Chancellor Vextar stood on his platform, his blue-scaled skin shimmering under the bright lights. Vextar was a hegemony leader, one of the 3 founding species of the Council. His people had ruled their sector of space for 5,000 years. They were proud, powerful, and absolutely convinced they knew what was best for everyone else. Ambassador Kane, Vextar's voice boomed through the chamber. Universal translators turned his words into perfect English. Please approach. Marcus walked to the center of the chamber floor. Sophie stayed close behind him. Around them, dozens of alien eyes watched. Some seemed curious. Others looked bored. A few appeared almost sorry. Earth's representative, Vextar continued, you are here to receive an official decision of this council. A decision that has been reached after careful consideration of your species' behavior over the past decade. Marcus felt his stomach drop. This was not going to be good news. The human species, Vexitar said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, has proven itself to be dangerously aggressive and unpredictable. Your military buildup, your territorial expansion within your own system, your resistance to our guidance on proper civilization development. All of this demonstrates that humanity cannot be trusted with unrestricted freedom. Murmurs rippled through the assembled representatives. Marcus noticed that some of the newer council members looked uncomfortable, but the older, more powerful species nodded in agreement. Therefore, Vextar raised his voice, this council has voted to place humanity under protective custody. All human military assets will be surrendered to council forces. All human colonies outside Earth will be evacuated and placed under proper supervision. Earth itself will receive a council oversight government to ensure your species develops along acceptable lines. The words hit Marcus like physical blows. Protective custody. Surrendered military assets, oversight government. These were polite terms for slavery. You have 72 hours to comply, Vextar announced. Council enforcement fleets are already moving toward your system. If you resist, if you attempt to fight, you will be classified as a hostile species and dealt with accordingly. Marcus found his voice. Chancellor, with respect, humanity has never attacked any council member. We have followed all agreements. We have traded fairly with all species. Why are you doing this? Vexitar's large eyes stared down at him. Because, Ambassador, your species does not know its place. You build weapons that could threaten your neighbors. You expand too quickly. You ask too many questions. Most importantly, you refuse to accept that some species are meant to lead while others are meant to follow. And which species are meant to lead? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. The ones who have proven themselves capable, of course. The hegemony, the Zephyrian Collective, the Valdari Empire. Species that have maintained order and peace for thousands of years. Species that understand responsibility. Around the chamber, representatives of these three founding species nodded proudly. Marcus noticed that newer council members, species that had joined more recently, stayed silent. "Your answer, Ambassador?" Vexitar demanded. Marcus straightened his shoulders. "I will carry your message to Earth, Chancellor. But I will also tell them something else. I will tell them that the council they trusted, the council they believed in, has decided to destroy their freedom simply because they are afraid of what humans might become." A hiss of anger rose from the hegemony section. Vextar's scales darkened to a deeper blue. "Your emotions prove our point, human. You react with anger instead of wisdom. You challenge instead of accepting. This is exactly why your species needs guidance. Or maybe," Marcus said quietly, "this is exactly why you are afraid of us." The chamber fell silent. For a long moment, Vextar stared at the human ambassador. Then he gestured dismissively. 72 hours, Ambassador. Do not test our patience." Marcus turned and walked toward the exit, Sophie beside him. As they reached the doors, he heard Vextar speaking to the other council members. "The human will carry our message to his world. They will see the size of our fleet and understand that resistance is hopeless. By week's end, this problem will be solved, and order will be restored." Outside the chamber, Marcus and Sophie hurried through the corridors toward the docking bays where their ship waited. Captain Alex Rodriguez had the engines ready for immediate departure. "How bad?" Alex asked as they rushed aboard the UES Liberty. "Worse than bad," Marcus replied. "They want to enslave us. Complete surrender in 72 hours. Alex's face went hard. "Not going to happen." "No," Marcus agreed. "It is not." As the Liberty lifted off from Zentara Prime and jumped to hyperspace, none of them noticed the small monitoring devices hidden throughout the ship. The Council had been watching human reactions for months, studying their emotions, their decision-making, patterns, their probable responses to various scenarios. They had run thousands of computer simulations. Every model showed the same result. Faced with overwhelming force, humanity would surrender. Some might complain, some might protest, but in the end, they would submit like every other species had submitted. After all, humans were just another primitive species that had barely learned to travel between stars. What could they possibly do against the combined might of the Galactic Council? Back on Earth, alarms began sounding in government buildings around the world. The message from Ambassador Kane was clear and urgent. Humanity had 72 hours to prepare for the fight of their lives. But unknown to the Council, humanity had been preparing for this fight much longer than anyone realized. President Diana Wells stood in the Situation Room beneath the White House, staring at the large screen that showed Ambassador Kane's face. The transmission from the Liberty was crystal clear, but the message was something she wished she had never heard. "Say that again, Marcus," she said quietly. 72 hours, Madam President. Complete surrender of all military assets. All colonies evacuated. Earth under Council oversight. Marcus's voice was steady, but Diana could see the anger in his eyes. "They call it protective custody." General Nathan Brooks slammed his hand on the table. "Protective custody. That's rich. They want to put us in a cage." Admiral Kate Sullivan leaned forward. "What about their fleet? How many ships are we talking about?" "Intelligence estimates over 10,000 warships," Sophie Martinez answered from beside Marcus on the screen. 3 full council enforcement, fleets, plus support vessels. They will be in our system within 60 hours. Diana felt the weight of 6 billion lives pressing down on her shoulders. As president, she had faced many crises: economic collapse, natural disasters, terrorist attacks, but nothing like this, nothing that threatened the entire future of humanity. We need to address the nation, she said. The world. People need to know what is happening. Meanwhile, light years away on Zentara Prime, High Chancellor Vextar hosted a celebration dinner for the senior council members. The dining hall was filled with representatives from the 3 founding species, all congratulating themselves on a problem well solved. To think the humans believed they could remain independent forever, laughed Coordinator Zixara of the Zephyrian Collective. Her insect-like compound eyes glittered with amusement. Such naive optimism. Indeed, agreed Prime Valdari Kethmore, his crystalline body chiming softly as he moved. They are like children who must be taught their place in the galaxy. Vextar raised his glass of fermented nectar. To the restoration of proper order, and to the lesson that all species must learn eventually. Around the table, the assembled leaders drank deeply. These were beings who had ruled their sections of space for thousands of years. They had brought dozens of species into the council fold, always following the same pattern: first contact, trade agreements, gradual integration, and finally, when necessary enforcement. The humans will surrender, of course, said Sub-Chancellor Mordak of the Hegemony. Our psychological studies show they are highly emotional, but ultimately practical. Faced with certain destruction, they will choose survival. Just like the Corvin did, Zixara added with a clicking laugh, and the Sithari, and the Vegan colonies. They all made brave speeches at first. They all submitted in the end. The humans are no different, Vextar agreed. If anything, they are more predictable. Their entire history shows a pattern of quick aggression followed by negotiation. They lack the discipline for sustained resistance. Back on Earth, Diana Wells walked to the podium in the Oval Office. Cameras from around the world focused on her face as she prepared to deliver the most important speech of her life. My fellow humans, she began, today we received news that will test our species like nothing before. The Galactic Council has given us an ultimatum. They demand we surrender our freedom, our colonies, our right to govern ourselves. They have given us 72 hours to comply. In living rooms and offices across Earth, people stopped what they were doing to listen. In space stations orbiting Mars and Jupiter, colonists gathered around communication screens. On mining platforms in the asteroid belt, workers put down their tools and waited to hear what their president would say. The Council believes we are too dangerous to remain free, Diana continued. They think we are too aggressive, too unpredictable. They want to place us under their control for our own good and the good of the galaxy. Her voice grew stronger. I want every human to understand what this means. This is not about trade agreements or border disputes. This is about whether our children will grow up as free citizens of Earth or as subjects of an alien empire. On Zentara Prime, Vextar watched the human president's speech with mild interest. The universal translators provided perfect real-time translation so he could understand every word. Observe, he said to his dinner guests, how she appeals to emotion rather than logic. This is exactly what we expected. Humans always react with their feelings first. What do you think she will say next? asked Coordinator Zixara. Something about fighting for freedom, probably, Vextar predicted. They always talk about fighting. But when our fleets arrive and they see the overwhelming force against them, they will remember that their primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields. On the screen, President Wells was indeed talking about freedom, but her words were not what Vextar had expected. The Council has made one critical mistake, Diana said. They have judged humanity based on incomplete information. They see our conflicts with each other and assume we are simply violent. They see our rapid expansion and assume we are reckless. They see our questions and challenges and assume we are defiant children who need discipline. She paused, looking directly into the camera. What they do not see is what happens when humanity faces a common enemy. What they do not understand is that our greatest strength has never been our weapons or our ships. Our greatest strength is that we never give up, we never stop fighting for what we believe in, and we never abandon each other. Stirring words, Mordak commented on Zentara Prime. But words will not stop plasma cannons. Let her speak, Vextar said dismissively. It will make the final surrender more satisfying. The more defiant they are now, the more complete their submission will be later. President Wells continued her address. In the next few hours, you will hear many things. Some will say we should surrender and hope for mercy. Some will say resistance is hopeless against such overwhelming force. I want you to remember something important. Every great achievement in human history has come when we faced impossible odds. She listed examples: the defeat of fascism in World War II, the journey to the moon, the colonization of Mars, the development of faster-than-light travel. Each breakthrough had seemed impossible until humans made it possible. The Council has given us 72 hours, Diana concluded. They expect us to spend that time preparing our surrender. Instead, we will spend it preparing to show them what humanity is really capable of. As the broadcast ended, Vextar turned off the viewing screen and returned to his dinner. Around the table, the other council leaders chuckled and shared jokes about human stubbornness. She speaks well for a primitive species, Zixara admitted. But courage without power is merely noise. Exactly, Vextar agreed. In 60 hours, when our fleets arrive, we will see how much of that courage remains. History shows us that facing annihilation has a way of making even the most defiant species reasonable. None of them noticed the small data packet that had been transmitted during the president's speech. Buried in the routine communication traffic between Earth and its colonies, hidden by encryption that appeared standard but was actually far more sophisticated than the Council realized. The message was simple: 3 words that meant everything. Operation Blackout Authorized. Across human space, in secret facilities and hidden bases, people began moving. The 72-hour countdown had begun. But humanity's real response to the Council's ultimatum would not be what anyone expected. Colonel Lisa Harper stood in the control room of Deep Station Alpha, a facility that officially did not exist. Located in an asteroid between Mars and Jupiter, the station was hidden behind stealth fields that made it invisible to any known sensor. Technology. Around her, dozens of technicians worked at their stations, their faces lit by the glow of holographic displays. Operation Blackout is now active, Lisa announced to her team. All satellite networks are responding. We have full coverage of the outer system. For the past 5 years, while the Galactic Council believed humanity was simply exploring their solar system, Earth's military had been secretly deploying a network of quantum disruption satellites. Each satellite was disguised as space debris, or mining equipment. Hidden in asteroid fields, floating near gas giant moons, drifting in the cold dark between planets. The Council's sensor technology was advanced, but it was designed to detect ships and large installations. It was not designed to notice small objects that looked like natural space junk but were actually sophisticated weapons platforms. Satellite networks 7 through 12 are now online, reported Technical Sergeant Mike Torres. Coverage extends from Neptune orbit to the inner asteroid belt. Excellent, Lisa replied. Status on the quantum disruptors? All systems green, Colonel. When activated, the field will extend across the entire solar system. Any ship caught inside will lose shields, communications, and navigational systems. Lisa nodded. The quantum disruption technology was humanity's first major breakthrough that exceeded Council capabilities. While alien ships relied on energy shields for protection, the quantum field would make those shields impossible to maintain. It was like removing an enemy's armor in the middle of battle. 3,000 miles away on Earth, Dr. Kevin Norris walked through the underground laboratories of the Manhattan II project. The facility was buried 2 miles beneath the Colorado Mountains, hidden from any possible detection. Here, humanity's brightest scientists worked on weapons that the Galactic Council could never imagine. Status report, Dr. Norris, called out Dr. Amy Chen from across the main laboratory. Final preparations are complete, Kevin replied. The dark matter warheads are loaded and ready. We have enough for 40 missiles. Dark matter weapons were theoretical impossibilities, according to Council science. Their own researchers had concluded that dark matter could not be contained or weaponized. They were wrong. Human scientists had taken a completely different approach, one that Council computers had never considered. What about the delivery systems? Asked Dr. Chen. Captain Walsh confirms all stealth missiles are in position. The Council fleet will never see them coming. Meanwhile, in a secret communication center beneath the Pentagon, Captain Ryan Walsh reviewed deployment reports from across human space. His job was coordinating the most sensitive part of humanity's preparation, the sleeper agents. For 15 years, since first contact with the Galactic Council, humans had been traveling to alien worlds as traders, diplomats, and researchers. Most were genuine civilians pursuing legitimate business, but scattered among them were carefully selected military intelligence operatives. Agent Phoenix reports from Hegemony Space, announced Commander Nicole Price, reading from her secure terminal. Industrial sabotage teams are in position at 17 major shipyards. Agent Falcon confirms placement of observation posts throughout Zephyrian territory, added Lieutenant Brian Cole. Full intelligence on fleet movements and defensive installations. Ryan smiled grimly. The Council believed they were dealing with a young species that barely understood interstellar politics. They had no idea that human agents had been mapping their territories, studying their weaknesses, and preparing for exactly this situation. What about the Corvin contacts? Ryan asked. Agent Eagle confirms the rebel cells are ready to move, Nicole replied. They have been waiting for an opportunity like this for decades. The Corvin were one of the species the Council had brought into protective custody 50 years earlier. Officially, they were grateful members of the galactic community. Unofficially, many Corvin still remembered their independence and waited for a chance to reclaim it. Back on Deep Station Alpha, Colonel Harper received a priority communication from Admiral Kate Sullivan on Earth. Lisa, what is the status of Project Lighthouse? All beacon ships are in position, Admiral. We have coverage from here to the edge of Council space. Project Lighthouse was perhaps humanity's most audacious secret operation. For 3 years, small automated ships had been traveling to the outer edges of Council territory. Each ship looked like a simple survey vessel, the kind of craft humans routinely sent out to map star systems. But these ships carried something much more important than mapping equipment. Each one contained a quantum communication beacon that would allow instant communication across galactic distances. When activated, they would create a communication network that bypassed all council monitoring systems. Excellent, Admiral Sullivan replied. Initiate the network in 6 hours. I want our agents to have real-time coordination when this begins. As the hours passed, more pieces of humanity's hidden preparation fell into place. Captain Ben Richardson confirmed that defense platforms around Earth's major cities were powered up and ready. These platforms appeared to be simple planetary defense systems, but they were equipped with the same quantum disruption technology as the satellite network. Major Susan Clark reported that enhanced marine units were aboard transport ships disguised as cargo vessels. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were genetically enhanced, cybernetically augmented warriors who could fight in any environment against any enemy. Dr. Patricia Young announced that her cyber warfare division had finished creating computer viruses specifically designed to attack Council information systems. Once released, these programs would spread through alien networks like wildfire, stealing data and disrupting communications. On Luna Base, Colonel Frank Stone oversaw the final preparations of the orbital bombardment platforms. These massive magnetic accelerators could fire projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. To alien sensors, they looked like civilian mass drivers used for moving cargo between planets. As the countdown entered its final 24 hours, General Nathan Brooks called a final briefing with the senior commanders of humanity's secret military network. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "in 18 hours the Council's enforcement fleet will arrive at the edge of our solar system. They expect to find a frightened, defenseless species ready to surrender. Instead, they are going to discover that humanity has been preparing for this moment since the day we first shook hands with an alien representative." He gestured to the holographic display showing the positions of all human forces. "We have weapons they do not know exist. We have agents in positions they never suspected. We have allies they thought were completely under their control. Most importantly, we have something no other species in the galaxy possesses." "What is that, sir?" asked Colonel Harper. General Brooks smiled. "We have the absolute certainty that we would rather die fighting than live as slaves. That knowledge changes everything." Around the room, the assembled officers nodded grimly. They understood what was coming. In less than a day, humanity would either establish itself as a major power in the galaxy or cease to exist as a free species. But looking at the network of hidden weapons, secret alliances, and innovative technologies they had built, every person in that room believed they were ready. The Council was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their courage. It was their ability to plan for the worst while hoping for the best, and they had been planning for this day for a very long time. Fleet Admiral Kexthuvar stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Endless Dominion, watching the blue-white star that was Sol grow larger on the main screen. Behind his ship, the greatest enforcement fleet in galactic history stretched across space like a metal constellation. 10,412 warships, 3 complete Council enforcement fleets plus support vessels. The combined firepower could crack a planet's crust or sterilize an entire star system. It was overwhelming force, designed to end resistance before it could begin. "Admiral, we are receiving surrender communications from the human homeworld," reported Communications Officer Veltara. "Already?" Kexthuvar was mildly surprised. His experience with defiant species suggested that humans would resist until they actually saw the size of his fleet. Put it through. The main screen shifted to show President Diana Wells sitting at her desk in the Oval Office. She looked tired but determined. "Fleet Admiral, I am President Wells of Earth. I want to discuss terms for our surrender." Kexthuvar nodded approvingly. The psychological warfare experts had been correct. Humans talked about fighting, but when faced with reality, they became practical. "There are no terms to discuss," he replied. "Unconditional surrender only. Your military forces will power down all weapons and await boarding. Your colonies will prepare for evacuation. Your government will transfer all authority to council administrators." "I understand," President Wells said, "but surely there must be some way to negotiate a peaceful transition, some compromise that protects human civilians while addressing the council's concerns." Perfect, Kexthuvar thought. She was already looking for ways to make surrender easier. This would be over within hours. "You have 12 hours to complete your surrender," he told her. "Any delay will be interpreted as resistance." As the communication ended, Kexthuvar turned to his tactical officer. "Deploy the fleet in standard enforcement formation. Prepare boarding parties for the major population centers." What the fleet admiral did not know was that President Wells had just transmitted a coded signal that appeared to be part of the normal communication protocol. Hidden in the data stream were 3 words that activated sleeping protocols throughout human space. Execute Phoenix Rising. On Zentara Prime, High Chancellor Vextar watched live feeds from the Sol system with satisfaction. The reports from Fleet Admiral Kexthuvar confirmed what everyone had expected. Faced with overwhelming force, the humans were preparing to surrender. "Excellent," he said to the assembled council representatives. "Another successful integration. The humans will make useful additions to our workforce. Their technology is primitive, but their industrial capacity is impressive," noted Coordinator Zixara. "We can put them to work in the outer colonies." "Indeed," agreed Prime Valdari Kethmore. "And their aggressive tendencies can be channeled into useful activities, under proper supervision." Around the chamber, representatives from the founding species congratulated themselves on another job well done. In over 1,000 years, the Galactic Council had never failed to bring a defiant species into line. The humans would be no different. But in the outer reaches of the Sol system, beyond the orbit of Neptune, something the Council had not anticipated was taking place. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the stealth carrier UES Phantom, looking at a tactical display that showed nearly 200 human ships emerging from hiding. For 5 years, these vessels had been stationed throughout the outer solar system, powered down and hidden behind sophisticated stealth technology. They appeared on no official records. As far as the Galactic Council knew, they did not exist. "All ships report ready, Admiral," announced Captain Chris Bennett from the heavy cruiser UES Revenge. "Weapons are powered up and targeting solutions are locked." "Outstanding," Admiral Morrison replied. "Captain Amy Foster, status on the Enhanced Marines?" "My boys and girls are ready to go, sir," Foster responded from the assault ship UES Hurricane. 5,000 Enhanced Marines across 20 boarding vessels. We have been training for this mission for 3 years. Admiral Morrison smiled grimly. The Enhanced Marines were volunteers who had undergone genetic modification and cybernetic augmentation. They were faster, stronger, and tougher than baseline humans. Most importantly, they had been specifically designed to fight in alien ship environments. Meanwhile, throughout Council space, human sleeper agents received the Phoenix Rising signal and began activating plans they had rehearsed hundreds of times. On The hegemony industrial world of Keth Prime, Agent Phoenix led a team of disguised humans into the massive shipyard complex that produced Council dreadnoughts. They carried fusion charges that would look like industrial accidents when they exploded. In the Zephyrian capital system, Agent Falcon coordinated with Corvin resistance cells to begin simultaneous uprisings on 12 different worlds. The Corvin had been waiting 50 years for this opportunity. On the crystal cities of Valdari space, Agent Eagle's cyber warfare specialists began introducing computer viruses into the central communication networks. These viruses were designed to spread slowly at first, then activate all at once to maximum effect. But perhaps the most important activation was taking place in deep space, where the Lighthouse Beacon network came online. Suddenly, human agents scattered across the galaxy had instant, undetectable communication with Earth and with each other. Back in the Sol system, Fleet Admiral Kexthuvar was reviewing final approach vectors when his sensor officer reported something unexpected. "Sir, I am detecting unusual energy readings from the outer system." "What kind of energy readings?" "Unknown, sir. The signatures do not match any known technology." Kexthuvar frowned. His intelligence reports indicated that human technology was centuries behind Council standards. They should not be producing energy signatures his sensors could not identify. "Investigate and report," he ordered. What his sensors were detecting was the activation of the quantum disruption satellite network. For the past hour, the satellites had been slowly building up charge, preparing to create a field that would encompass the entire solar system. On Earth, Dr. Kevin Norris made final checks on the dark matter missiles hidden in what appeared to be asteroid mining operations. Each missile was equipped with a warhead that could penetrate any known shield technology and cause damage on a scale the Council had never seen. "All missiles report ready," he announced to Colonel Stone at the orbital defense platforms. "Confirmed," Stone replied. "Mass drivers are charged and targeting solutions are locked. We have firing solutions on every major ship in their fleet." In the underground command center beneath the Pentagon, General Nathan Brooks watched status, reports flowing in from across human space. Every piece of the plan was falling into place exactly as they had rehearsed. "Sir," reported Major Carol Davis, "Agent Phoenix confirms sabotage charges are placed at 17 hegemony shipyards. Agent Falcon reports Corvin uprisings are ready to begin. Agent Eagle has introduced virus packages into 43% of Council communication networks." "Outstanding," General Brooks replied. "Signal all units. Execute in 60 minutes. As the final hour counted down, Fleet Admiral Kexthuvar continued his approach toward Earth, confident that he was dealing with a primitive species that would surrender the moment they saw his fleet. He had no idea that he was flying into the most sophisticated trap in galactic history, a trap planned by a species that had been preparing for this confrontation since the day they first learned they were not alone in the universe. The Council had made a critical error. They had judged humanity based on their own experience with other species. They assumed that all intelligent life would react the same way when faced with overwhelming force. But humans were different. When faced with impossible odds, they did not surrender. They prepared. They planned. They found ways to turn their weaknesses into strengths and their enemies' advantages into vulnerabilities. In 57 minutes, the Galactic Council was about to learn that lesson in the most dramatic way possible. Fleet Admiral Kexthuvar was reviewing surrender protocols when the first warning alarm sounded on his bridge. The piercing tone cut through the quiet efficiency of the command center, causing heads to turn toward the sensor stations. "Report," Kexthuvar demanded. Sir, we are detecting massive energy buildup throughout the system, Sensor Officer Velnara announced, her voice tight with confusion. The readings are unlike anything in our databases. Impossible. Human technology cannot produce energy signatures we do not recognize. But even as he spoke, Kexthuvar could see the evidence on his tactical display. Thousands of small objects throughout the solar system were suddenly blazing with power. Objects that had appeared to be space debris were revealing themselves as sophisticated technology. Admiral, Communications Officer Veltara called out urgently, we are losing contact with our scout ships in the outer system. What do you mean losing contact? All communication has ceased, sir. No response to any frequency. On Deep Station Alpha, Colonel Lisa Harper watched her displays with grim satisfaction. The quantum disruption field was spreading across the solar system like an invisible wave, moving at the speed of light from satellite to satellite. Every council ship caught in the field was experiencing complete systems failure. Field deployment at 60%, reported Technical Sergeant Mike Torres. Council fleet is moving deeper into the coverage area. Excellent, Lisa replied. Maintain field integrity. Do not let a single ship escape. The quantum disruption technology worked by interfering with the fundamental forces that held energy shields together. Council ships had relied on their shields for protection for so long that their armor was relatively thin. Without shields, they were vulnerable to weapons that should not have been able to hurt them. Aboard the Endless Dominion, Kexthuvar watched, in growing alarm as his fleet began to fall apart around him. Ship after ship reported complete shield failure. Communications were reduced to short-range transmissions only. Navigation systems were failing throughout the fleet. How is this possible? He demanded. Our intelligence reports indicated humans had no advanced defensive technology. What he did not know was that human intelligence had been carefully managing what the Council learned about Earth's capabilities. Every piece of technology the aliens had seen was deliberately chosen to appear primitive and harmless. Sir, detecting multiple missile launches from asteroid formations, Tactical Officer Vexmar reported. Incoming weapons are using some form of stealth technology. Captain Lauren Davis piloted the prototype stealth destroyer UES Retribution through the chaos of the disabled Council fleet. Her ship was invisible to alien sensors, a ghost moving through their formations with deadly purpose. Target the command ship, she ordered her weapons officer. All dark matter torpedoes, full, spread. The torpedoes streaked through space, each one containing a warhead that manipulated dark matter in ways Council science insisted was impossible. When they struck the Endless Dominion, they punched through the hull like it was made of paper. Kexthuvar felt his massive ship shudder under impacts that should not have been possible. His shields were down, but his hull armor should have been able to stop any human weapon. Instead, explosions were ripping through multiple decks. Damage report, he shouted over the alarms. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 15. His damage control officer replied. We have lost main power to sections 4 and 5. Sir, whatever they are firing at us, our armor cannot stop it. Throughout the Council fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Ships that had been nearly invulnerable were taking devastating damage from weapons that should not have existed, but the real shock was yet to come. Sir, detecting massive energy buildup from the third planet? Velnara announced. On Earth, Colonel Frank Stone stood in the control center of Luna Base, watching targeting data flow across his screens. The orbital mass drivers were charged and ready. Each one could accelerate a projectile to 15% of light speed. All platforms report ready, announced Major Sam Turner. We have targeting solutions on every capital ship in their fleet. Fire, Colonel Stone ordered. The mass drivers released their projectiles in perfect synchronization. Streams of metal traveling at relativistic speeds lanced out from Earth's orbital platforms toward the Council fleet. At such velocities, even small projectiles carried enormous kinetic energy. Kexthuvar watched his tactical display in horror as dozens of his largest ships simply vanished. The human projectiles struck with such force that they punched completely through the vessels, leaving nothing but expanding clouds of debris. "This is impossible," he whispered. "They are a primitive species. How can they have weapons that exceed our technology?" But the surprises were far from over. In the outer system, Admiral Jake Morrison's hidden fleet dropped their stealth fields and began their own attack. 200 human warships that the Council had never known existed suddenly appeared on sensors. "All ships, commence attack run," Admiral Morrison ordered. "Captain Bennett, take your battle group and hit their flanks. Captain Foster, prepare your Marines for boarding operations." The Council fleet, already reeling from the loss of shields and communications, now found themselves under attack from multiple directions by an enemy they had thought was defenseless. Captain Amy Foster led the first wave of boarding pods toward disabled Council ships. Her enhanced Marines were eager for close combat, something no other species in the galaxy had developed to the same level. "Remember your training," she told her troops as their assault pods closed on a hegemony cruiser. "These aliens have never fought an enemy that specializes in ship-to-ship combat. Show them what human Marines can do." The boarding pods punched through the alien ship's hull, and enhanced Marines poured into the corridors. What followed was not a battle, but a demonstration of human superiority in close-quarters fighting. The hegemony crew had never experienced anything like it. Humans who moved faster than their sensors could track. Humans who could fight in zero gravity and toxic atmospheres in complete darkness. Humans who seemed to anticipate every move and counter every tactic. Within minutes, the cruiser's bridge was under human control. But perhaps the most devastating blow came from an unexpected source. Throughout Council space, the Corvin uprising began exactly as planned. 50 years of suppressed anger exploded simultaneously on dozens of worlds. On Zentara Prime, High Chancellor Vextar received the first reports with disbelief. "What do... You mean the Corvin are in revolt? They have been loyal Council members for 5 decades. Sir, we are receiving reports of coordinated attacks on government installations throughout Corvin space," his aide reported. "They appear to have been planning this for years." "And the humans?" "Sir, our enforcement fleet has gone silent. We have lost all contact." Vextar stared at the tactical displays showing the Sol system. Where his mighty fleet had been, there was now only chaos and debris. Somehow, the primitive humans had destroyed the most powerful military force in galactic history. But the true scope of the disaster was only beginning to become clear. Computer viruses introduced by human agents were spreading through Council networks like wildfire. Industrial sabotage was crippling shipyards across 3 sectors. Allied species were rising in revolt. And through it all, a new communication network that the Council could not detect or intercept was coordinating human operations across the galaxy. In the space of 6 hours, everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about warfare, about technology, and about humanity had been proven completely wrong. Fleet Admiral Kexthuvar, trapped aboard his damaged flagship with human Marines closing in on his position, sent one final message to Zentara Prime. The humans were not unprepared. They were not defenseless. We have walked into a trap 50 years in the making. May the stars forgive us for what we have unleashed." Then the human Marines reached his bridge, and the greatest military defeat in galactic history was complete. Commander Tyler Hughes kicked down the blast door to the Endless Dominion's bridge, his enhanced armor gleaming under the emergency lighting. Behind him, a squad of human Marines moved with the fluid precision of apex predators. They had trained for this moment for 3 years, studying alien ship layouts, learning enemy weak points, perfecting the art of ship-to-ship combat. Fleet Admiral Kex Thuvar stood behind his command chair, his blue scales pale with shock. Around him, his bridge crew huddled behind their stations, their weapons abandoned. They had never seen anything like these humans. They moved too fast, hit too hard, anticipated every defensive move. "Admiral," Tyler said, his voice calm despite the battle raging around them, "you are now a prisoner of the United Earth Forces. Order your remaining ships to stand down." "Impossible," Kex Thuvar whispered. "We had 10,000 ships. The most advanced technology in the galaxy. How could you possibly—" "You made one mistake," Tyler interrupted. "You believed your own propaganda about human primitiveness. You forgot to actually study what humans are capable of when we are properly motivated." Throughout the shattered remnants of the Council fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Human Marines were seizing ship after ship with an efficiency that shocked their alien opponents. These were not the disorganized raids the aliens expected from a desperate species. These were precision military operations executed with flawless coordination. Captain Amy Foster led her assault team through the corridors of a Zephyrian battleship, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to dodge energy blasts that would have killed a normal human. The insectoid Zephyrians were fierce fighters, but they had never encountered an enemy that could match their speed while exceeding their tactical thinking. "Deck 7 secured," she reported over the comm. "Moving to engineering. These bugs fight hard, but they fight like individuals. No real unit cohesion." That was the key difference, she realized. Every other species in the galaxy had evolved, past the point where physical combat was common. They had weapons, they had tactics, but they had lost the killer instinct that made humans so effective in close quarters. On Earth, Dr. Patricia Young watched her computer screens with fierce satisfaction. The Cyber Warfare Division's viruses were spreading through Council networks faster than anyone had hoped. What had started as 43% penetration was now approaching complete coverage. "We have access to their central communication network," announced her deputy, Dr. Ron Kim. "All Council military communications are now compromised." "Excellent," Patricia replied. "Begin Phase 2. I want their entire information infrastructure under our control within the hour." This was psychological warfare on a scale never before attempted. The Council had ruled through information control, making sure that member species only knew what the leadership wanted them to know. But now, for the first time in galactic history, the truth was spreading freely. On dozens of worlds, populations that had lived under Council control for centuries were learning about human resistance. They were seeing footage of Council ships being destroyed by the species that was supposed to be primitive and helpless. Most importantly, they were learning that rebellion was possible. In the Corvin system, Agent Falcon coordinated the liberation of their homeworld with a precision that amazed even her human commanders. The Corvin resistance had used 50 years of apparent submission to map every Council installation, identify every collaborator, and prepare for exactly this moment. "Government complex secured," reported Corvin Commander Thekvar. "Council administrators are in custody. We are transmitting independence declarations on all frequencies." "Outstanding," Agent Falcon replied. What about the orbital platforms? Under our control. The Council garrison surrendered when they realized their shields were down and their communications were jammed. They had no idea how to fight without their technological advantages. That was the pattern emerging across Council space. For over 1,000 years, the Council's military had relied on overwhelming technological superiority. They had never learned to adapt, to improvise, to fight with inferior equipment. When humans stripped away their advantages, they discovered that the Council's forces were helpless. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching tactical displays that showed the complete collapse of Council resistance in the Sol system. In 6 hours, humanity had gone from facing annihilation to achieving total victory. Sir, we are receiving surrender requests from 47 Council vessels, reported Captain Chris Bennett. They are requesting safe passage out of the system. Denied, Admiral Morrison replied. All Council ships are to be impounded pending war crimes investigations. We need to understand exactly how they plan to enslave our species. What about their crews? Prisoner camps on Luna. Full medical treatment and decent conditions, but they stay until we figure out what comes next. But the victory in Sol was only the beginning. Throughout Council space, human agents were activating plans that had been years in the making. Industrial sabotage was crippling the alien military-industrial complex. Propaganda broadcasts were encouraging resistance on dozens of worlds. Most devastating of all, the truth about Council history was finally being revealed. On Zentara Prime, High Chancellor Vextar watched his empire crumble in real time. Reports flooded in from across Council space. The Corven were in full revolt. The Sithari had declared independence. 3 minor species had announced they were joining a new free species alliance with humanity. How many ships have we lost? He asked his military advisor. Preliminary reports suggest over 8,000. Vessels destroyed or captured, came the devastating reply. The outer fleets are reporting complete communication breakdown. We have lost contact with 17 systems. And the humans? Sir, they appear to have had agents throughout our territory for years. Sleeper cells that activated simultaneously with their defense of Earth. We are looking at coordinated sabotage across 43 star systems. Vextar slumped in his chair. In one day, the Galactic Council had gone from the undisputed rulers of their sector to a collapsing empire under attack from within and without. But perhaps the most shocking development was taking place on Earth itself. Captain Lauren Davis had brought her captured intelligence data to the Pentagon, where analysts were discovering the true scope of Council plans for humanity. General Brooks, she reported to the assembled command staff, you need to see this. The Council wasn't just planning to enslave us. They were planning to use us as shock troops for conquering the outer galaxy. General Nathan Brooks studied the alien data files. The plans were comprehensive and chilling. Humans would be used as expendable soldiers to fight the Council's wars against species in distant star clusters. Earth would become a breeding ground for military slaves. They saw our combat effectiveness and wanted to weaponize it, he said grimly. Thank God we were ready for them. Sir, there is more, Captain Davis continued. These files contain evidence of similar operations against dozens of other species. The Council has been doing this for over 1,000 years, creating client states, enslaving populations, using conquered species as tools for further conquest. The revelation changed everything. This was not just about human freedom. It was about exposing a galactic empire built on systematic oppression and slavery. Admiral Kate Sullivan issued new orders to all human forces. All personnel are authorized to assist any species seeking liberation from Council control. We are not just fighting for Earth anymore. We are fighting to free the galaxy. Within hours, human ships were jumping to star systems throughout Council space, not as conquerors, but as liberators. They brought captured Council documents proving decades of oppression. They brought advanced weapons to help local resistance. Movements. Most importantly, they brought hope to species that had given up on freedom long ago. The Galactic Council had made a fatal error. They had assumed that humans would react to overwhelming force the same way every other species had reacted. But humans were different. When faced with extinction, they did not surrender. They fought back with everything they had, and once their fury was unleashed, nothing in the galaxy could stop them. News of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On thousands of worlds, species that had lived under Council rule for centuries gathered around communication screens, watching footage that seemed impossible. The mighty Council, fleet, destroyed. Human warriors boarding alien ships with ease. The symbol of galactic authority reduced to scattered debris in a single star system. On the crystal world of Valdari Prime, crowds gathered in the geometric plazas, their crystalline, bodies chiming with excitement as they watched the broadcasts. For 300 years, the Valdari had been protected by the Council, their natural pacifism used as justification for their lack of self-determination. "Is it real?" asked young Valdari Kethlun, her crystal form pulsing with nervous energy. "It is real," confirmed Elder Valdari Morthon, his ancient form resonating with something that had been absent for centuries. Hope. The humans have done what we thought impossible. They have defied the Council and won. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. On the ocean world of Aquatica, the amphibious Sithari emerged from their underwater cities to hold the first free elections in 200 years. In the asteroid fields of the Outer Rim, the silicon-based mineral collective began dismantling Council monitoring stations with mining equipment turned into weapons of liberation. But nowhere was the transformation more dramatic than on Zentara. Prime itself, the seat of Council power for over a millennium. High Chancellor Vexatar stood before an emergency session of the Galactic Council, his blue scales darker than they had ever been. Around him, the representatives of 47 species sat in their curved tiers, but the atmosphere was completely different from the confident gathering that had issued humanity's ultimatum just days earlier. "The situation is worse than we initially believed," Vextar announced, his voice heavy with defeat. "We have lost contact with 63% of our enforcement fleets. Rebellion has broken out in 17 sectors. The humans appear to have had agents throughout our territory for years." Coordinator Zixara of the Zephyrian Collective clicked her mandibles nervously. "How is this possible? Our intelligence services reported no evidence of human infiltration." "Our intelligence services," Prime Valdari Kethmore said, his crystal form chiming with bitter irony, "apparently knew nothing about human capabilities. We have been blind, and our blindness has cost us an empire." In the back rows, representatives from newer Council members began to speak. These were species that had joined the Council more recently, many of them still remembering their independence. "Perhaps," said Ambassador Velnara of the Ethereal Collective, "the question is not how the humans defeated us, but why we gave them reason to fight us in the first place." The chamber erupted in arguments. The founding species insisted that the problem was insufficient force, poor intelligence, inadequate preparation. The newer members suggested that maybe enslaving an entire species had been wrong from the beginning. Meanwhile, in human-controlled space, Captain Greg Parker was establishing the first off-world human military base on the captured hegemony outpost of Delta 7. The station had surrendered without a fight when its shields failed and its communications were jammed. Base Defiance is now operational, he reported to Admiral Morrison. We have full defensive capabilities and can support fleet operations throughout this sector. Excellent work, Captain. What about the alien crew? Most have requested to join our operation, sir. Apparently they never wanted to serve the hegemony in the first place. They were conscripted from conquered worlds and forced into military service. This was becoming a common pattern. As humans liberated council installations, they discovered that many of the loyal troops were actually conscripts from enslaved species, serving only because they had no choice. Colonel Janet Clark was experiencing something similar on the Zephyrian training world of Kethnor. Her human marines had expected fierce resistance when they landed, but instead found Zephyrian instructors eager to learn human combat techniques. They want to train their own people to fight, she reported to General Brooks. Not for conquest, but for self-defense. They say the Council has kept them deliberately weak for 3 centuries. Approved, General Brooks replied. Establish a joint training program. Teach them everything they need to defend themselves. Throughout liberated space, humans were sharing their technology and training with anyone who wanted to learn. Not to create an empire, but to ensure that no single power could dominate the galaxy again. Admiral Tony Rivera coordinated the establishment of supply lines with liberated Corvan worlds. The Corvan had proven to be natural allies, their warrior culture similar to humanity's in many ways. The Corvan shipyards are already producing vessels based on human designs, he reported. They want to help liberate other systems. What about raw materials? The Mineral Collective has agreed to provide all the metals and rare elements we need. In exchange, we are helping them establish planetary defenses. Dr. Michelle Brooks had perhaps the most important job of all. As head of the Evidence Collection Division, she was documenting Council war crimes for the galaxy to see. The captured files from Council ships and installations painted a picture of systematic oppression that shocked even human analysts. General, you need to see this, she told General Brooks during a secure briefing. The Council has files on over 200 species, detailed plans for conquest, enslavement, and exploitation. Some of these operations go back 500 years. How many species are still under their control? Approximately 47 in their core territories. But, sir, there is something else. The files show that the Council was planning to expand beyond our galaxy. They have been developing technology to cross the galactic void and conquer other galaxies entirely. General Brooks felt a chill run down his spine. If the Council had succeeded in enslaving humanity, they would have used human troops as expendable soldiers in a campaign of conquest across the entire universe. Make sure every liberated world gets copies of these files, he ordered. The galaxy needs to understand what they were really dealing with. On Zentara Prime, the Emergency Council session had devolved into chaos. Representatives were shouting at each other in dozens of languages, the universal translator struggling to keep up with the volume of angry voices. Order! High Chancellor Vextar bellowed. We must maintain unity if we are to salvage this situation. Unity? Ambassador. Velnara stood, her ethereal form shimmering with indignation. You want unity after your arrogance has destroyed everything? After your policies have turned half the galaxy against us? The humans attacked us unprovoked, Vextar protested. The humans defended themselves against enslavement, corrected Elder Morthon of the Valdari. Something any species would do. if they had the capability. The argument continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. By the end of the session, the Galactic Council had effectively ceased to exist as a governing body. The founding species still controlled their core territories, but their authority over the rest of the galaxy was gone. In its place, something new was emerging. Human Ambassador Marcus Kane, recently promoted to Secretary General of Liberated Worlds, was coordinating the establishment of a new galactic organization. The Free Species Alliance, he announced in a broadcast to all liberated worlds, will be based on the principle that every intelligent species has the right to self-determination. No species will rule over another. No world will be forced to submit to external authority. The contrast with Council philosophy could not have been starker. Where the Council had demanded submission, the Alliance offered partnership. Where the Council had imposed unity, the Alliance celebrated diversity. Within weeks, over 200 worlds had applied to join the Free Species Alliance. The momentum was unstoppable. For the first time in galactic history, the default assumption was freedom rather than domination. Captain Alex Rodriguez, now commanding the diplomatic vessel UES New Dawn, surveyed the diverse crews working aboard. Alliance ships, humans, Corvin, Valdari, Cathari, and dozens of other species working together as equals. "Admiral," he reported to Admiral Sullivan, "the joint crew experiment is working better than anyone expected. Turns out most species get along fine when no one is trying to conquer anyone else." Admiral Sullivan smiled. "Funny how that works, isn't it? Maybe the Council's biggest lie was that different species can't coexist as equals." As the weeks passed, it became clear that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of the Free Species Alliance had begun. And at the center of it all, the species that had been dismissed as too primitive to matter had become the catalyst for the greatest transformation in galactic history. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the neutral world of Haven hosted the most important gathering in galactic history. The planet had been chosen specifically because it had never been part of the Galactic Council, remaining independent through centuries of expansion and conquest. Secretary General Marcus Kane stood at the podium in the Great Assembly Hall, looking out at representatives from over 200 worlds. The diversity was breathtaking. Crystalline Valdari sat next to insectoid Zephyrians. Aquatic Cathari delegates floated in specially designed tanks next to the silicon-based representatives of the Mineral Collective. Even some former council species had sent observers, curious about this new form of galactic organization. 6 months ago, Marcus began, many of us lived under a system that promised order and peace in exchange for our freedom. Today, we gather to establish something different, something that has never been tried on a galactic scale, a union of free and equal species. The translation systems worked overtime as Marcus's words were converted into hundreds of languages and communication methods. But the message was clear in any language. The galaxy was starting over. General Nathan Brooks sat in the military observer section, watching as former enemies worked together to establish common defense protocols. The transformation still amazed him. Species that had been at each other's throats under Council rule were now cooperating on joint projects. "The human military advisors are working better than we hoped," Colonel Janet Clark reported during a break in the sessions. "Corvin warriors are learning human tactics. Zephyrian strategists are teaching us about swarm coordination. The Valdari have developed new shield harmonics that work with our quantum disruption technology." Any problems with integration? Surprisingly few. Turns out most species fight the same way when they are fighting for something they believe in instead of fighting because they are forced to. Dr. Patricia Young was experiencing similar success with information systems integration. The various species had brought their own communication technologies, but working together, they had developed something far superior to anything the Council had achieved. The new Galactic Communication Network is operational, she reported to Admiral Kate Sullivan. Real-time communication across 50,000 light-years, complete encryption that even we cannot crack without proper authorization codes. Most importantly, every member species has equal access. Admiral Sullivan nodded approvatively. Information control had been one of the Council's most powerful tools. By ensuring that all species had equal access to communication technology, the Alliance was making sure that kind of oppression could never happen again. But perhaps the most impressive changes were happening in space itself. Admiral Tony Rivera coordinated the new multi-species defense fleet from his flagship, the UES Harmony. The ship was a marvel of cooperative engineering, incorporating the best technology from dozens of different species. Fleet status report. He requested from his diverse bridge crew, Commander Thekvar, a Corvan who had once fought against human forces, now served as tactical officer. All defense squadrons report ready. We have coverage from the Galactic Core to the Outer Rim. Any aggressive action will be met with immediate response. Lieutenant Cathalara, a young Valdari whose crystal form glittered under the bridge lights, handled communications. Sir, we are receiving membership applications from 3 more systems. They want to join the Alliance Defense Network. Approved, Admiral Rivera replied. Send them the standard integration packages. The Alliance Defense Network was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of a central fleet that imposed order through force, it was a cooperative system where each member contributed according to their abilities and received protection based on their needs. Captain Alex Rodriguez commanded one of the most unusual ships in the fleet, the UES Unity. His crew included humans, Corvan, Sithari, Valdari, and representatives from 6 other species. Each brought their own expertise to the ship's operation. Captain, called out Ensign Morthek, a Sithari whose amphibious nature allowed her to work in flooded sections of the ship. We are approaching the Outer Rim patrol area. Excellent. Dr. Velkari, what do your sensors show? Dr. Velkari was a member of the Ethereal Collective, beings of pure energy who could interface directly with ship systems. No hostile contacts, Captain. 3 trading vessels requesting escort through the asteroid fields. Provide escort, Alex ordered, and send them information about Alliance trade agreements. This was the new reality. Instead of species being forced to trade only with Council-approved partners, the Alliance encouraged open commerce between all members. The result was an economic boom that lifted living standards across the galaxy. Back on Haven, the Constitutional Convention was reaching its climax. After months of debate, the representatives had finally agreed on the fundamental principles of their new organization. The Free Species Alliance, Marcus announced as he read the final document, is founded on 3 basic principles. First, every intelligent species has the inherent right to self-determination. Second, no species may impose its will upon another through force or coercion. Third, all members are equal partners in the Alliance, regardless of their military power, economic resources, or technological development. The applause was thunderous, though it came in many forms. Humans clapped their hands. Corvan drummed their claws. Valdari chimed in harmonious resonance. Each species celebrated in their own way, but the joy was universal. The contrast with the old council could not have been more complete. Where the council had demanded submission, the alliance offered partnership. Where the council had imposed uniformity, the alliance celebrated diversity. Where the council had ruled through fear, the alliance governed through consensus. Dr. Michelle Brooks presented the final war crimes report to the Assembly. The evidence she had gathered painted a picture of systematic oppression that shocked even those who had lived under council rule. Over 500 years of documented enslavement, she announced. 237 species forced into submission. Entire civilizations destroyed for the crime of refusing to surrender their freedom. The Galactic Council was not a government. It was a criminal organization on a galactic scale. The report ensured that the remnants of the Council would never be trusted with power again. The founding species still controlled their core territories, but they were isolated and diminished, no longer capable of threatening their neighbors. But the alliance was about more than just preventing the return of the old order. It was about creating something better. Captain Lauren Davis commanded a joint exploration vessel that included scientists from 20 different species. We have discovered 15 new worlds suitable for colonization, she reported to the Alliance Science Council. All will be developed according to Alliance principles. No single species will control any world. All colonies will be cooperative ventures. The old pattern of conquest and exploitation was being replaced by cooperation and mutual benefit. Species that had been enemies under council rule were now working together to explore the galaxy and establish new homes among the stars. On Earth, President Diana Wells stood in the Rose Garden, looking up at the night sky. 6 months ago, those stars had seemed filled with enemies. Now they were filled with friends and allies. Madam President, her aide announced, Ambassador Kane is ready for the video conference. The weekly Alliance coordination meetings had become a highlight of Diana's schedule. Seeing representatives from across the galaxy working together toward common goals never failed to inspire her. "Marcus," she said as his image appeared on the screen, "how are things progressing?" "Better than we ever hoped," Marcus replied from his office on Haven. "Membership is up to 243 worlds. Economic integration is ahead of schedule. Most importantly, we have had 0 conflicts between member species. Any problems? Only the good kind. We have more applications for membership than we can process. Everyone wants to join an organization that treats them as equals instead of subjects." As the months passed, it became clear that the transformation of the galaxy was permanent. The Free Species Alliance was not just a reaction to council oppression. It was a genuinely better way for different species to coexist. Admiral Jake Morrison, now retired from active duty, served as head of the Alliance War College. His job was making sure that the military lessons of the conflict were never forgotten. "The key to our victory," he told new classes of officers from dozens of species, "was not our technology or our tactics. It was our refusal to accept that freedom was impossible. The Council fell because they forgot that any intelligent species, given the right motivation, can achieve the impossible." Captain Ryan Walsh, formerly of Human Intelligence, now headed the Alliance Information Service. Unlike the Council's spy network, the AIS was dedicated to preventing conflicts rather than starting them. "Early warning is everything," he explained to his diverse staff. "Our job is to spot problems before they become wars. We protect the peace by making sure everyone has the information they need to make good decisions." As the first anniversary, of the Battle of Saul approached, the galaxy had become almost unrecognizable. Where once there had been an empire built on oppression, there was now an alliance built on cooperation. Where once there had been fear,